In the simmering heat of July 1952, Washington, D.C. bustled with a palpable undercurrent of tension. It was the height of the Cold War, a period when fear of the unknown, particularly concerning potential threats from the Soviet Union, held a firm grip on the nation's psyche. Amidst this backdrop, the city pulsed with activity. Government officials hurrying between monumental buildings, secretaries transcribing urgent messages, soldiers standing sentinel at important facilities, and civilians immersed in their daily routines. The American capital was a city on alert, vigilant in the face of invisible adversaries. The strain of the international political climate was deeply etched into the life of the city. The newspapers on every street corner and the radio broadcasts resonating in every home painted a picture of a world in turmoil. With the Iron Curtain casting its shadow over half the world, the tension was palpable. It was an era of ever-evolving technology, of alliances forged and broken in hushed whispers, and of a relentless march towards an uncertain future. The inhabitants of Washington, D.C., and indeed the nation, had become adept at living in the midst of these tensions. They went about their daily routines, their conversations underscored by an undercurrent of unease, but also resilience. The city was a microcosm of the nation it represented, its spirit reflecting the hopes, fears, and tenacity of its people. As the city sweltered under the summer heat, life carried on beneath the broad expanse of the blue sky, which watched over the city like a silent guardian. Despite their myriad worries and preoccupations, the citizens of Washington, D.C. could hardly have been prepared for what the summer of '52 had in store for them. An event was about to unfold that would add another layer to the city's narrative. A spectacle that would startle the nation and send ripples of astonishment across the world. As the clock ticked towards midnight on July 19, 1952, the cityscape of Washington, D.C. was blanketed in darkness. The grandeur of the city was outlined against the velvet backdrop of the night sky, bathed in the silver glow of the moon. The city's heartbeat had slowed, with its busy streets reduced to a whisper as it drifted into the tranquil hours of the night. In the subdued nighttime stillness, an unlikely group found themselves unusually active. Nestled within the humming operations of Washington National Airport and Andrews Air Force Base, radar operators were bustling about in their respective control towers, eyes glued to the green glow of their radar screens. These screens, the pulse monitoring devices of the sky, were their portals to the sprawling expanse of the airspace above the Capitol. Just after midnight at Washington National Airport, the usual slow rhythm of the radar's sweep was disrupted. Unexpected blips began to pepper the screen, causing the operator on duty, Edward Nugent, to furrow his brows. These radar returns were from objects that were moving too fast, changing direction with an agility that was unheard of for any known aircraft. Simultaneously, a similar scene was unfolding at Andrews Air Force Base. Here too, radar operators were noting anomalous blips darting across their radar screens. The dots appeared and disappeared with an unnerving unpredictability, leaving a trail of confusion in their wake. In the beginning, there was an air of disbelief. Technological glitches were not uncommon. They were a more reasonable explanation than unidentified flying objects. Nugent called in his supervisor, Harry Barnes, a veteran air traffic controller, who noted the same erratic movement. They watched the strange dance on their screens, mesmerized and puzzled. The operators at Andrews Air Force Base, in tandem, were scurrying for explanations, troubleshooting their devices in an attempt to explain the phenomenon. It was at this moment that a routine was broken. A call was placed from Washington National to Andrews Air Force Base, a quick check to see if they were witnessing the same. The affirmative reply sent a chill through the operators. The blips weren't a figment of malfunctioning radar. Something was indeed in the sky. As the enigmatic objects continued their mysterious ballet across the midnight canvas of Washington, D.C., whispers of the unusual activity began to ripple through the city, reaching the ears of its diverse populace. In the shared skies above, civilians, pilots, and air traffic controllers alike became audience to this inexplicable performance. Each of these observers, linked by the threads of this shared experience, lent a unique perspective to the unfolding narrative. Captain Casey Pierman was piloting a Capital Airlines flight when he first spotted the elusive objects. His initial surprise soon turned into astonishment as the luminous orbs executed intricate maneuvers with a grace and speed unknown to terrestrial aircraft. The stark whiteness of their glow, he would later note, was unlike any known aircraft lights, while their erratic motion didn't adhere to any conventional flight patterns. His report, one among many, would add an essential layer to the increasingly complex tapestry of this phenomenon. On the ground, air traffic controller Perry Barnes had a clear view of the night sky from the control tower at Washington National Airport. His eyes, accustomed to the ordered movements of airplanes, were riveted by a scene that seemed to defy logic. There, against the darkness of the night, danced a cluster of glowing orbs, their eerie luminosity in stark contrast to the natural stars. His professional expertise told him that these were no ordinary aircraft. Their speed, the sudden stops, and the acute turns were nothing like he had ever observed. The sightings were not confined to those within the aviation circle. Civilians across the city, from different walks of life, were drawn out of their nightly routines by this celestial performance. A family enjoying the summer night in their backyard was captivated by a mesmerizing display of lights in the sky, their erratic movement painting bewildering patterns against the backdrop of the night. Their account, tinged with a mixture of awe and uncertainty, echoed a shared sentiment, a sense of being privy to an event that was larger than their understanding. While these observers recounted their stories, within the confines of the air traffic control towers, radar operators were wrestling with an enigma of their own. The strange, unidentifiable blips that painted their radar screens seemed to mirror the eyewitness descriptions. The time, trajectory, and behavior of these radar contacts seemed to align uncannily with the accounts of the pilots and civilians. This synchronicity between the objective data and subjective experiences provided a sobering confirmation. The mysterious spectacle wasn't an illusion or mass hallucination, but a very real event. As the city slept unaware, the chorus of these accounts grew, each voice adding a note of awe and trepidation to the unfolding symphony of mystery. The narrative of that night was being woven, not by a singular account, but through a collective experience that spanned across professions and societal classes. What they shared was not just a sighting, but a moment of profound mystery that would forever alter their understanding of the world, and indeed, the universe. Under the expanse of the Washington skies, a clandestine ballet of radiant orbs continued their evasive maneuvers, watched by an array of eyes, each widening with disbelief. Amid the radar towers and civilian landscapes, another breed of observer was being summoned. The U.S. Air Force, the iron shield of the American skies, was beckoned into this theater of the unknown. The Air Defense Command, guardians of the United States airspace, first received the radar reports with skepticism. Yet, as the testimonies from trusted pilots and air traffic controllers poured in, corroborating the radar sightings, skepticism gave way to grave concern. A chill of realization spread through their ranks. The unknown entities dancing above the nation's capital had become an issue of national security. Fighter jets, the sleek predators of the skies, were scrambled in response, their engines roaring to life in the stillness of the night. Among these pilots was Lieutenant William Patterson, a veteran of numerous skybound confrontations. As he soared into the starlit arena, his mission was unlike any other he'd been tasked with before: to pursue not a known enemy, but an unidentified presence that defied all norms of aerial conduct. In the tight confines of his cockpit, Patterson engaged the mysterious entities. He would later describe the surreal pursuit, the bright blips on his radar screen darting away with an unnatural speed as he approached, only to reappear moments later in a different quadrant of the sky. It was a game of celestial cat and mouse, played out in the vast arena above Washington. In his own words, Patterson described his encounter with the unidentified objects as a chase against the impossible. He detailed the strange movements of the lights, their speed, and their erratic maneuvers. As he approached them, they darted away with such rapidity that it baffled his mind, defying all known capabilities of human technology. They'd reappear moments later in different parts of the sky, as if mocking his pursuit with their extraordinary speed and maneuverability. Back on the ground, the dialogue between military personnel and air traffic control painted a vivid picture of this skybound pursuit. Radio waves hummed with the tense back and forth, each report from Patterson and his comrades adding a new layer of astonishment to the unfolding narrative. The air was heavy with a mix of professional urgency and underlying wonder, as they found themselves on the front lines of this extraordinary confrontation. As the first light of dawn crept across the city, the ballet of the unknown gradually retreated, leaving behind a wake of questions and a silence that hummed with the echoes of the night. The week following the initial series of sightings was marked by an air of uneasy anticipation. The memories of the strange lights from the previous weekend were still etched vividly in the minds of those who had witnessed them. The mystery of their origin and purpose, a constant source of speculation. Life in Washington, D.C. had taken on an aura of the surreal, as ordinary citizens and seasoned air traffic controllers alike wondered if the glowing specters would return. On the evening of July 26th, as the heat of the day began to retreat, the city of Washington held its collective breath. The radar operators at Washington National Airport and Andrews Air Force Base, tasked once again with their routine duties, eyed their screens with a blend of apprehension and curiosity. The bizarre dance of unexplained signals from the previous weekend had left an indelible mark, and there was an unspoken hope that this weekend might provide some answers. Their hopes would soon be answered in the most dramatic fashion. The radar screens sprung to life once more with the eerie blips of unknown craft. The inexplicable signatures returned, moving across the radar screens in a manner that defied conventional explanation. And this time, it wasn't just the radar operators who were privy to this strange spectacle. Sightings flooded in from all over the city as civilians reported observing a plethora of strange lights in the night sky. Descriptions of radiant orbs performing impossible maneuvers filled the airwaves, painting a picture of an astonishing aerial spectacle that was unfolding before the city's eyes. The public reaction ran the gamut from awe to fear, from fascination to disbelief. The celestial ballet was back, and this time, it had an even larger audience. This wave of sightings jolted the military into a state of high alert. With the memory of the previous weekend's futile pursuits still fresh, the U.S. Air Force marshaled its forces with renewed determination. Fighter jets, their sleek forms glinting under the floodlights, were hastily readied for takeoff. Each pilot in the cockpits of these roaring machines held a single goal in mind: to confront and identify these enigmatic entities that had the audacity to intrude upon the nation's capital's airspace. As the blips once again populated the radar screens, orders crackled over the radio. Jets were scrambled in a swift, methodical response. The previous week's confusion and incredulity had given way to an ironclad resolve. This time, the authorities were determined to come face to face with the mysterious intruders. The night sky was punctuated with the raw power of jet engines as they hurtled through the air in pursuit of their elusive targets. Radio communication between the pilots and ground control was a constant flurry of updates and directives. Every sighting reported by civilians on the ground was swiftly relayed to the pilots, every radar blip interpreted and communicated with urgent precision. Despite the concerted efforts of the military, the unknown objects continued to defy interception. Their movements remained erratic and unfathomable, with sudden changes in direction and speed that left the pursuing jets floundering in their wake. As the night waned and the objects finally disappeared, the Air Force was left grappling with the reality of their elusive adversaries. The second weekend's events had only deepened the mystery, leaving a trail of unanswered questions and a military superpower wrestling with its inability to defend its own skies from the unidentified intruders. In the aftermath of the second weekend of sightings, an atmosphere of frenzied speculation hung over Washington, D.C. The city buzzed with whispers of extraterrestrial visitors and government conspiracies. Newspaper headlines screamed about flying saucers and mysterious lights, and talk of UFOs dominated the airwaves. The unidentified aerial phenomena had captured the public's imagination, and the clamor for answers was growing louder by the day. The U.S. military found itself in the eye of the storm, fielding an unending barrage of questions and demands for transparency. The pressure was mounting, and it was clear that a public statement was needed to address the spiraling situation. On July 29, 1952, a significant press conference was announced, drawing an immediate flurry of interest. The venue chosen was the largest available room in the Pentagon, a nod to the gravity of the situation and the enormous public and media interest. The conference was led by Major General John Samford, Director of Intelligence for the U.S. Air Force. The room was packed to capacity, the air heavy with anticipation, as the assembly of reporters, photographers, and military personnel waited for Samford to speak. Samford began by detailing the military's investigations into the sightings, emphasizing the seriousness with which the Air Force had treated the reports. He spoke of the extensive efforts to identify the mysterious radar blips, the scrambling of fighter jets, and the careful analysis of radar data. The centerpiece of the military's explanation, however, lay in the concept of temperature inversions. Samford explained how, under certain weather conditions, layers of warm air could trap a layer of cooler air beneath them. This could cause radar beams to refract or bend, producing radar echoes that might be mistaken for unidentified aircraft. As he delved into the intricacies of the phenomenon, Samford proposed that such temperature inversions had been prevalent on both weekends of the sightings. He argued that these atmospheric conditions could account for the mysterious blips that had been observed on radar, and even for some visual sightings. The explanation, steeped in scientific reasoning and presented with conviction, was the military's attempt to demystify the events of the past 2 weeks.
We can say that the recent sightings are in no way connected with any secret development by any agency of the United States.
But despite Samford's reassurances, the press conference left many feeling unsatisfied. The questions lingered, and the debate about what had truly occurred over the skies of Washington, D.C. was far from over. In the hearts and minds of many, the mystery remained, an enigma that would continue to stoke the fires of imagination and speculation for decades to come. In the immediate aftermath of the press conference, the media machine sprang into high gear. Major General Samford's explanation of temperature inversions reverberated through newsrooms, radio stations, and television networks across the nation. The echo of his words filled newspapers, reaching far beyond the confines of the Pentagon's meeting room. The reactions to the military's explanation were as varied as the people who heard them. Many accepted the scientific reasoning put forward by the Air Force, feeling reassured by the concrete, earthbound explanation. They commended the military's transparency and thanked them for dispelling the specter of alien invasion. Yet there were many who remained skeptical, viewing the explanation as an overly convenient way to dismiss the extraordinary nature of the sightings. Critics pointed out that temperature inversions were common and argued that they could not account for the sheer magnitude and specificity of the sightings and radar detections. They also questioned why experienced pilots and radar operators had been so unequivocally startled by the phenomena if they were simply products of routine weather patterns. The international reaction was a mix of fascination, amusement, and bemusement. For some, the events further fueled the captivating allure of American pop culture, while others saw it as another episode of mass hysteria. Nevertheless, the events in Washington were the talk of the world, underscoring the ubiquity and durability of the UFO phenomenon. Within the U.S., the events sparked a nationwide discussion about the possibility of extraterrestrial life and humanity's place in the cosmos. The sightings, and the government's response, had shone a spotlight on the subject of UFOs like never before. Even for those who accepted the official explanation, the incidents raised questions that could not be easily dismissed. People began to look up at the night sky with newfound curiosity and wonder, with an undercurrent of apprehension. But government action did not end with the questionable explanations given at the press conference, and these sightings sparked a wave of developments within the intelligence community that continues to echo throughout modern society. Just months after the Washington sightings, as the fervor of speculation was still reverberating throughout the public sphere, the Central Intelligence Agency convened a scientific advisory panel tasked with examining the UFO phenomenon. Chaired by physicist and weapons systems developer Howard Percy Robertson, the group became known as the Robertson Panel. Robertson was an astrophysicist and mathematician of considerable renown in the academic and governmental sectors. Robertson graduated from the University of Washington in 1922 and later earned a doctorate from the University of Göttingen, Germany in 1925. His research spanned several fields, but his most notable contributions were in relativity and cosmology, where he played a significant role in developing models of the universe based on the general theory of relativity. During World War II, Robertson applied his expertise in optics and served as a scientific liaison between the British and American military research programs. His contributions included work on the design of the bomb sight, a device used for accurate aerial bombing. After the war, he continued to serve as a scientific advisor to the U.S. government, particularly in the burgeoning field of space science. When the CIA convened the Robertson Panel in 1953, Robertson was a natural choice to lead it. His distinguished scientific career, combined with his experience working with the government on classified projects, made him a trusted and respected figure. His reputation lent credibility to the panel's investigations and its eventual findings. The Robertson Panel, composed of distinguished scientists, was created not necessarily to assess whether UFOs were evidence of extraterrestrial life, but rather to evaluate the national security risks posed by the sheer number of UFO reports. They were tasked with discerning if these reports were clogging up vital communication channels, and if enemy nations could use these UFO reports to sow disinformation or create panic. The panel met for 4 days in January 1953 and sifted through mountains of reports, eyewitness accounts, photographs, and film footage. The subject matter was diverse, ranging from vague lights in the sky to close encounters, with the sightings over Washington, D.C. serving as a cornerstone of their investigation. The panel's conclusions leaned heavily towards skepticism. They found that most UFO reports could be explained by misidentified man-made or natural objects, and that truly unexplained cases were likely the result of mass hysteria or hoaxes. Importantly, they determined that UFOs did not present a direct threat to national security. However, the panel did raise concerns about the potential for the Soviet Union to exploit the public's fear of UFOs to sow discord or distract the US military in a crisis. They recommended a public education campaign to reduce the public's fascination with UFOs and discourage false reports. The Robertson Panel's report greatly influenced the US government's official stance on UFOs. The wave of public interest and the flurry of sightings during the 1952 Washington incident had highlighted the need for official policies and procedures concerning these phenomena. Following the recommendations of the panel, UFO reports were de-emphasized, and public statements about UFOs took on a reassuring, dismissive tone. The government's role, it seemed, was to calm public fears and manage the narrative. This shift in stance can be seen as a pivotal moment in the history of UFO phenomena, with skepticism becoming the default response from the government. 70 years have passed since the skies over the US Capitol became the canvas for a series of perplexing events that we know today as the 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO incident. These aerial phenomena, visible to numerous onlookers and confirmed by radar readings, remain an object of enduring intrigue. Researchers, UFO enthusiasts, skeptics, and the general public alike continue to dissect, discuss, and marvel at this defining moment in UFO history. This unique incident significantly altered the public's perception of unidentified aerial phenomena. The incident's hold over the public imagination was not limited to the United States. The international community, too, looked on in wonder, as mainstream media diligently covered the unfolding events. In the immediate aftermath, the US government found itself facing mounting questions and rising public concern. The government's response culminated in the formation of the Robertson Panel in 1953. This investigative body, convened under the auspices of the Central Intelligence Agency, marked a turning point in institutional attitudes towards UFOs. Its mission to demystify the UFO phenomenon initiated a phase where investigation and debunking became the norm. However, the panel's conclusions didn't sit well with a significant portion of the populace. To many, the explanations offered, from misinterpretations of natural phenomena to conventional aircraft, seemed inadequate. These answers failed to convincingly explain the sightings that stretched over 2 distinct weekends and were backed by the testimonies of experienced pilots and radar operators. The passage of years hasn't diluted the incident's mystique or cultural significance. In many ways, it has amplified it. The incident became a wellspring of inspiration for countless books, films, and documentaries, keeping it firmly ensconced in popular culture. The indelible image of a formation of lights hovering over the Capitol remains a potent symbol of the UFO phenomenon's enduring enigma. The 1952 incident also set a precedent for handling and examining future UFO sightings. Its echoes can be felt in today's UFO investigations, which seek to balance scientific methodology with an appreciation of the public's enduring fascination with the unknown. As the years have rolled by, technological advancements in radar technology and aerial analysis have opened up fresh avenues to reevaluate the 1952 incident. Each new investigation brings its own perspectives and insights, further deepening the layers of this mystery. Yet, a definitive explanation remains tantalizingly out of reach. In essence, the 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO incident is more than a mere footnote in UFO history. It is a fundamental chapter that embodies the mystery, fascination, and controversy that pervades the human pursuit of understanding the unknown. Its narrative continues to evolve, reflecting our societal relationship with the unknown and our inexhaustible quest to unveil the hidden realms of the universe.